recording this straight to YouTube. So we're going straight out.
I'm impressed
Yeah.
with technology.
Yeah. Oh, you're okay.
I'll give it to you early since Wayne's.
Okay.
How many years have you been doing the show?
About 10 years. 10 years. And kids across the street for a long time.
Yeah, well, I remember you were
Yeah,
in
those
Seals.
kitchens.
Well, because Keith Ellison and I did there when long before he was running for Congress,
Yeah.
he and I were in the house together.
Yeah. Goes back a long ways. Yeah. But it's fun. Let's see. We're ready to go.
Here we go.
Hi, viewers. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
I think we're on now. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane, broadcasting today from the Minneapolis Urban League, the beautiful facility. We call it the heartbeat, the center, the home of public policy in North Minneapolis. We're glad to be here. We're always promising to deliver what we call robust conversation. What is the proposition? Why do we do this? Well, Insight News, we're a community newspaper, and sometimes it's difficult for smaller news organizations to get out and to send the teams and teams of reporters far and afield to cover the important issues of the community, of the neighborhood. And we find it's sometimes useful to bring the newsmakers to the community. So we've created the Public Policy Forum, this broadcast, Conversations with Al McFarlane, to bring newsmakers, news thinkers, activists, people who are players in the development of community to the interview, and to do the interview in a place where we invite you, the community, to participate in the process. So we're pleased to have this wonderful partnership with KFAI. KFAI allowing these broadcasts on the airwaves at 90.3 FM and worldwide, globally, on the internet at kfai.org. We are pleased to have the wonderful music of Wayne McFarlane and Jazz, and we open the show with Wayne and that musical organization every week. Well, today we're pleased to have Matt Entenza, who's recently launched his campaign to become the 2010 nominee for the Democratic Party for the governor of Minnesota. He wants to be governor in 2011. Is that correct?
I think that sounds like an excellent goal.
Okay. He's served 6 terms in the Minnesota House of Representatives, first elected in 1994 to represent St. Paul's District 64A. He's also served on in the legislature, he served on the K-12 Finance, the Education Policy, and the Commerce Committees. In 2004, his caucus won 14 legislative seats and resulted in a 68-66 state house divide, meaning that for the first time in a long while, the Democrats had a little power over in St. Paul. And when he left the legislature in 2006, he was the Speaker of the House. Well, good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here this morning, Matt.
Well, and it's always good to be here with you. I recall one of the last times I was on the show with you, Al. It was a young man named Keith Ellison who was with me. Keith was serving with me at that point at the State House. And of course, he's gone on to great things since then, representing this area.
So it means you're in the right place right now.
Well, and I'm very pleased that one of the people who is supporting me is Representative Congressman Ellison. Bobby Joe Champion, who represents the north side of Minneapolis here, is another one of my strong supporters. And I've got lots of friends and folks on the north side of Minneapolis and across the state. I'm very excited. You know, Al, ultimately this is about the economy, it's about jobs, it's about how do we get all of Minnesota working again. And I'm very excited to talk about the ways that we can, in a positive way, move the state forward, because our present governor, bluntly, is not doing the job. Well,
we're looking at, in today's news, the possibility of the governor's veto of bills passed last night. Give us a primer. What happened last night at the close of this legislative period, and where do things stand right now? What are the options for the voters, the residents of Minnesota? What will play out as, what do you think is going to play out in the next several days?
Well, and unfortunately, I think we've seen a power play by a governor whose ambition seems to be more about Washington, D.C. than about St. Paul. And what he did is go to the legislature and basically say it's going to be my way or the highway. We have a history in this state of we've had a lot of Republican governors over the last number of years and Democratic legislators, and generally they find some way to compromise. But sadly, this governor is not willing to compromise. And the thing that I find so ironic is you have former Republican governors like Arne Carlson and Al Quie and others who are saying, look, there's ways to compromise about these things. But of course, his Governor Plenty always says, well, I don't want to support taxes, but I can tell you people here in Minneapolis are going to be seeing a lot of taxes because his idea of balancing the budget is balancing it on the backs of communities like Minneapolis. And as a result, he's going to force Mayor Ryback and the council to look at huge property tax increases, or you'll be laying off scores of police and firefighters and others with the kind of budget cuts that he's discussing.
If you were governor, what would you do? What's the difference between you, Matt Intenza, and the incumbent? How would you be handling the crises, the budget crisis that our state faces and other crises right now, rather than what's being offered or responded to by the present governor?
Well, I think you have to have a vision for where you're taking the state. I don't believe that this governor has a vision for the state. I think he seems to have a vision for maybe how to run for president, but not a vision for the state.
Is that realistic for him?
When Sarah Palin was seen as national leader, I couldn't figure that out.
Is that realistic right now?
So
it could happen.
I wouldn't pretend to understand what seems to be a vision for today's Republican Party. But I can tell you, I think the vision is about, building a new economy. I think that we should, in the north side of Minneapolis, be building solar collectors. I think we should be building the next generation of wind turbines. I think that we should be taking our homes off of the grid and building clean energy that's good for our environment. There's going to be a state that's going to become the Silicon Valley of the new clean energy economy, and that should be Minnesota. If there's one thing we have a lot of, and we certainly had a lot of it in St. Paul last night, was wind. There's a lot of wind out there. There's beautiful sun. We're having a beautiful sunny day today here. Minnesota is a leader in those things, and also in things like biomass. We need a vision that says we're not going to cut our way to greatness, because you don't cut your way to greatness. You grow your way to greatness. And I believe you need to have a vision of how to grow the economy and how you create jobs. Because I tell you, when I drive up and down Broadway now or on Plymouth, what I see are families that are struggling and that need someone who's going to stand behind them. And I want to stand arm in arm with Keith Ellison and with Bobby Joe Champion and others and rebuild the North Side and be rebuilding the economy in places like this.
Critics in my neighborhood say that the governor wants to balance the budget on the backs of the poor, that his threat to use line item vetoes and his general insistence on short-term fixes or one-time fixes really belie the need for a long-term solution that is fair, equitable, and progressive. What do you say to that?
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, let's look at what he wanted to protect the most. He wanted to make sure that a few folks at the upper end of the income scale who pay less in taxes as a percentage of their income, continue to be protected. At the same time, he's saying that he wants to cut hundreds of millions of dollars of local government aid that provides the basic services that areas like North Minneapolis and the entire city of Minneapolis need. And what happens? Who's going to suffer? Well, it's not the Edinas that suffer. It's not the Egans that he seems to want to protect. It is rural communities that are going to suffer. It's cities like Minneapolis that are going to suffer. And is that a long-term strategy? It's not. I mean, he's killing, the economic engines and the people that are growing, that should be growing our state to protect a very few.
Our community is particularly interested in how do we resolve the gaping disparities in a number of areas. One, economics, jobs, access to employment, to work. Two, education. We fare far worse than the general public in terms of our educational experience in Minnesota, even though Minnesota is a leader in the nation and has demonstrated the ability to provide a supremely high quality educational experience. The disparity experienced by Black people and people of color is really shameful. Thirdly, health. There's a huge disparity in the health experience of Black people and other people of color and the general population. How do you address those issues, Matt Intenza?
Well, I'd like to say that it's going to get better, but I see a governor